Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the court of the EDI Jester, and I hope you're all well today. I've got an interesting one for you from the Daily Fail, right? You may remember there was some concern and worry, and I think a very justified concern and worry, that a bunch of miscreants from the Tavistock were setting up a private gender clinic. And you know as well as I do what's that about. We know what the game is there, and I was most concerned to see that was happening. I was most concerned to see that it was going to exist at all, and I was even more concerned to see that it's actually being done by people who were at the Tavistock, which, as you know, is being closed and was found unfit for purpose once examined. This is really where the rubber hits the road on this stuff about this gender identity nonsense and this queer nonsense, and what we're talking about here is children. So I want to dive into this article and just let you consider what it is that's being said and what you think the likely outcome is going to be, so that we can keep the conversation going. I'm unhappy with the idea of trans medicine being private at all. I think one of the reasons that we actually have managed to put a stopper on this is because we have socialised medicine. If you look at what's happening in America and Canada, it's a free-for-all. It's absolutely horrific. Even though we've got some idiots over here who have started paying for gender assignments for their staff and etc. I don't want any of this. They need to stop doing it, right? So, interesting. Now, what I think is also interesting is I'm hearing something about Iceland and them classing, gender incongruence or gender dysphoria, whatever the hell you want to call it, as an illness in the Supreme Court. I haven't got any confirmation on that yet, but let's see if you might have it by now, by the time you see this. So we'll see what goes on there. But let's begin with this. Now, the health watchdog is going to probe the private gender clinic set up by staff from scandal-hit Tavistock unit. Written by Daisy Graham Brown on the 1st of July in the Daily Mail. And it begins. A private gender clinic run by former staff from the scandal-hit NHS Tavistock Centre is being investigated by the government's health watchdog just 1 month after opening. 1 month after opening. The Mail on Sunday can reveal that the controversial new Gender Plus clinic, which is what it's called, which may refer children and teenagers for gender reassignment surgery and hormone treatment, is being probed for failing to register with health regulator, the Care Quality Commission, which said it was not currently looking at a criminal investigation. Last night, critics voiced fears that Gender Plus poses a serious risk to young people. I don't know why we haven't got our head around this yet. Right, what's wrong with us as a society? Come on. It's a red flag wherever it is. It's always a red flag. Around half of the clinic staff previously worked at the Tavistock's Gender Identity Development Service, the NHS's only clinic treating children for gender dysphoria, which was ordered to close last year after a damning NHS review. Dr. Hilary Cass ruled the service was not safe for children. The clinic, which opened in the 1980s, was strongly criticised for allegedly rushing thousands of teenagers onto life-altering puberty-blocking drugs. Since then, former patients have come forward saying they regret transitioning. We all know at least one who has come forward, I'm sure. And there will be, I am sad to say, hundreds more across the world in the next few years. We don't understand fully any of this yet. The science just isn't there. And we will see more people, sadly, damaged by this until any government in the UK, gets a handle on how dangerous this stuff is. Okay? Former Tavistock staff opened Gender Plus, which has offices in London, Birmingham and Dublin. It's like Japanese knotweed, isn't it? Just, you can't get rid of it. It's sort of in beds and... The company's website says it provides specialist gender assessment for children, adolescent and young adults. Its gender assessment sessions cost £275 for a 1 hour appointment, and it is recommended that under 18s need 6 sessions for full assessment. So they're going to assess in 6 hours. It's just beyond the pale. There is no assessment that will tell you that you need to put a person on hormone blockers. There is none. Not hormone, puberty, right? There is none. There's no assessment that can tell you if somebody has a mystical gender identity. There are only people in distress. Only people in distress. This is absolutely disgraceful. The total bill will be £1,650, but there are concerns from doctors that most consultations are being carried out remotely via Zoom calls. It's unreal. We know from the work of the giants upon whose shoulders we stand, don't we? Kathleen Stock, Ellen Joyce, people who've written about this extensively, various doctors who were involved in the Tavistock. We also know from the likes of Hannah Barnes, with her great book, Time to Think, the nature and the destructive manner in which gender ideology and queer theory run rampant over safeguarding and protocols and then infiltrate themselves in order to continue the disgusting medical pathway written by W-Path. Right? Who are, you want to go right back into that? You can do. Go and have a look. It's not pleasant. Right? So this nonsense has to stop. And it seems that our government is completely and absolutely unable to do anything about it. It's relying, I think here's what's happening, is it's relying on old systems of control, like the Care Quality Commission, who've been with us a long time and have been able to make sure that standards can be maintained where possible. I believe they're horrifically underfunded, but that's just me. If we took the money from companies that are spending it on crap like DIE, and give it to the Care Quality Commission, they might be able to have a lot more people on the ground stopping this going on. So what I think is happening is they're relying on old systems of control for something that is predominantly a technological problem. So the technological problem is that these people are allowed to advertise their wares and do it online. So nobody's got to go there, right? So they can advertise their wares. Now, if they're a business, they can advertise their wares. But what they shouldn't be doing is advertising this. This needs to be classed as medical malpractice, right? That's all we need to do. Anything that affirms is medical malpractice. There is only one route, and that route is the talking therapist. That's it. Okay? You don't screw with the body to make it fit a deluded mind. Right, so Gender Plus, the clinical director at Gender Plus is Dr. Aidan Kelly, was at Tavistock for 5 years and it was closed down, while 6 other former Tavistock staff worked for Gender Plus. Its website claims the company is in the process of setting up an associated hormone clinic run by consultant nurse Paul Carruthers, who was a member of the Tavistock NHS team from 2015 onwards. But Gender Plus is already facing issues, and the new clinic has alarmed officials at the Care Quality Commission, which started investigating its practices last week. A source at the watchdog said, based on the information available on the company's public website, the registration team has referred Gender Plus to the National Enforcement Team as an unregistered provider for further review of these services. Investigators will seek to establish whether Gender Plus should have been registered with the regulator prior to opening. However, Gender Plus say they are offering consultation and therapy sessions which do not require CQC oversight. There we go. They're trying to get past the boundaries again. Boundary pushing is the queerness of gender identity ideology. No boundaries. Nothing is beyond the pale. So they're trying to get rid of the boundaries that already exist. They're trying to undermine those boundaries that already exist. If gender affirming care is medical malpractice. It is an experiment, right, on children. So they're saying that they do not require CQC oversight as clinical services would. The watchdog previously branded the Tavistock's gender unit as inadequate following a 2020 inspection. 2 years later, it was shut down by the NHS following almost 2 decades of concerns from former staff, patients and relatives. Critics said the Tavistock Clinic's affirmative treatment model ignored evidence that an astonishing 97.5% of children seeking sex changes had autism, depression, or other problems that might have explained their unhappiness, rather than this idea of a gender dysphoria. Dr. Kelly is described by Gender Plus as having specialist skills in the assessment of gender identity needs and making recommendations for gender-affirming medical treatments, and is passionate about increasing access to care for gender-questioning people. God Almighty. The High Priest. I can see your soul. But while the Gender Plus website lists 8 of its employees as having doctor in front of their name, none of them are registered with the General Medical Council and instead have academic PhDs or doctorates in psychology. One clinician, Iggy Moon, previously claimed that considering gender to be a male-female binary is inherited from colonialism. That's it. See, it's all there in it. So you've got the entire vile triptych there, haven't you? Queer theory, gender identity ideology, critical race theory. There we go. Right? Nutters. Last night, Dr. Louise Irving, a GP with 27 years experience, who is part of the Clinical Advisory Network on Sex and Gender, said Gender Plus employs several former Tavistock staff and appears to use the same discredited affirmative model of care involving referral for puberty blockers and hormones that led to the decision to close it after the CQC inspection deemed it inadequate. Gender Plus is not registered with the CQC, so how will patients and their parents know that they are getting safe and effective care from an unregulated provider? They might as well read the bumps on your head. Right? Or it should say, or do your horoscope, right? Or let's do, Myers-Briggs. I am an INTJ. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Might as well be doing that, aren't they? It's the same stuff. Concerns were also raised by distinguished psychiatrist and NHS whistleblower Dr. David Bell. David, as you know, has been involved in this from the very beginning, who worked at the Tavistock before he quit and issued a report accusing the clinic of causing long-term damage to young patients. Former Tavistock patients have told of the damage they suffered after seeking treatment from its Gender Identity Development Service. Even the name, Gender Identity Development Service. God almighty. Even the name assumes the reality of an unreality. This is where we have to be careful, because you can't give it, I don't care who you are, right? You can't give it any credence. It doesn't exist. It is a fantasy. Kira Bell, who later took the clinic to court, was referred to GIDS in 2013 during a mental health crisis and told a therapist she thought she was a boy. She told the Mail on Sunday, "They didn't explore any of my background or mental health. It seemed just they wanted to appease me, using my chosen male name Quincy and affirming me as a boy." At 16, she was given puberty-blocking drugs and told it would give her more time to think, but they had major side effects. Age 20, she had surgery to remove her breasts, but 2 years later realised she'd made a mistake. Kira, who now lives as a woman, said, "My whole life has been affected. You can't even describe how much damage they've caused." Another former patient treated by the Tavistock Clinic when she was 15 said she now feels like a mutilated experiment gone wrong after undergoing irreversible surgery. Known as Jasmine, she said she wanted to transition from a girl to a boy after being introduced to the idea on social media. At GIDS, she was honest about her history of mental health issues and self-harm after 3 appointments. After 3 appointments, she was deemed trans and transferred to an adult clinic at the age of 17. There, Jasmine said she was referred for hormones and mastectomy, but they made things a lot worse. She later detransitioned back to a girl and was discharged from the Tavistock with no aftercare. "I feel a little bit mutilated and like an experiment gone wrong," she told ITV, saying GIDS should have questioned if she was really trans. "I really needed someone to take an interest in my mental health outside of gender and not frame everything within my gender identity," she said. Young people who present with gender identity problems have many other psychological disorders, and it is vital that there is a full psychiatric mental assessment. This is what the doctor, David Bell, has said previously, this type of thing. And I'm surprised that Gender Plus do not think it is necessary to have a psychiatrist as part of the team. I hope that appropriate authorities will act quickly to prevent damage being done to children. Tory MP Dr. Caroline Johnson, a former consultant paediatrician, said, "At a time when NHS England is improving care and safeguarding for this group of vulnerable children, it is of great concern to see a new private clinic being opened which does not appear to have any medical consultants and seems to have so many staff from the discredited Tavistock Clinic. NHS England recently confirmed that it would prescribe puberty blockers to children only as part of clinical trials." No. None. Nada. Finished. Zip. Over. We are not experimenting on children. It said there was not enough evidence to support their safety or clinical effectiveness. If there's not enough evidence to support their safety or clinical effectiveness, why are you experimenting on people? Human guinea pigs. For God's sake! There are concerns that private clinics such as Gender Plus may be able to bypass the new protections. Last year's NHS review said there was not enough research on the long-term impact of hormones on young people, but yet we'll stick them on a trial. This has got to stop. It also raised fear that doctors were under pressure to adopt an unquestioning affirmative approach to gender identity. Stella O'Malley, a psychotherapist and director of medical campaign group GenSpec, said, "It is notable that despite offering referrals for hormones and surgery, Gender Plus is not registered with the CQC, which may highlight the lack of due care that is being offered by this enterprise. We are deeply concerned that Gender Plus have established themselves as a clinic that will continue to follow the discredited gender affirmative model. This system of care has been evaluated and found to be profoundly lacking. Gender Plus appears to be following a profit-making business model rather than following the Hilary Cass report, which recommended multidisciplinary regional teams operated through the NHS. Stephanie Davis-Rye from Transgender Trend added, "The worry is that this service is not registered with or regulated by the CQC and that Gender Plus will provide a service based on ideology." That's exactly what it seems to be to me. This will put children at risk, as it did at the Tavistock. Bayswater Support Group, another excellent group there, Bayswater Support Group, which represents parents of transgender children, said, "It is very concerning that Gender Plus is already operating without being registered by the CQC and is therefore completely unregulated." Gender Plus looks like Tavistock 2.0. The claim that this private clinic is following the evidence-based reforms set out by the Cass Review appears very unlikely. A spokesperson for Gender Plus said last night, "Our service management have previously clarified with the CQC that the holistic psychosocial service we provide, which includes gender, mental health and neurodevelopmental assessment and support, does not fall under their remit and as such is not eligible for CQC registration." They don't address the central points of the argument. They don't address what we know to be true about the damage being done to children. They don't address the fact that this experiment on children has gone badly wrong and damaged many people. They just say, "It's okay, folks. We're not covered by your remit, so we're going to carry on." This is despicable. Absolutely despicable on every level. If in the future we do provide services which will require CQC registration, then of course we will seek registration. It added that their team of experts in healthcare, mental health and neurodevelopment accepts referrals for children, adolescents and adults to help address the huge level of unmet need. It's a factory producing its products. The CQC said it was not undertaking a criminal investigation, but if new information becomes available that gives reasonable grounds to suspect an offence may have been committed, we will consider appropriate action. It ends. It ends. That's it. It ends. I just hope that the triage for this, NHS research is so tough that nobody ever gets through it. That should be the way it's done. That should be the way it's done. Just bloody end it. Stop lying to children. Stop lying to the public. Stop lying to everybody. And stop with this absolutely revolting belief system. It's got no place in a modern society. Go well.